How the heck are you this afternoon? Yeah, we got a lot to talk about. Last night's debacle in Denver, tomorrow's game against the Minnesota Timberwolves, the one and only Jerry Reynolds, Ryan in Sacktown. It all gets started in a moment right here on If You Don't Like That.
3, 2, 1, go.
Sacramento miscue. Carter, stolen by Williams. And look at this. Oh, you don't like that. You don't like NBA basketball. Fox, goodbye. Oh, if you don't like that, you don't like NBA basketball. The exclamation point from De'Aaron Fox. Oh, if you don't like that, you don't like NBA basketball.
Boy, that's an ESPN highlight right there. Whoa. Carlson comes in. How about this? Holy moly, Jim Bob Foley. That is a major league smush.
So great to have Jerry Reynolds, Ryan in Sacktown, as we talk about the Kings and the NBA. I'm sure you two and the rest of the Kings fans and fans in general saw the video of Scott Pollard getting out of the hospital today in only Scott Pollard fashion. Nobody walks out of the hospital quite like the way he does. We have been messaging a lot. He just said he is so happy to be out of the hospital. He is now across the street from the hospital in an apartment that his wife has rented for about 6 weeks. He has to stay in Nashville next to the hospital for 6 weeks for obvious reasons. First and foremost, if he were to have a setback, the hospital's right there, but he's got to do rehab, physical therapy, but he's in great spirits. So I wanted to update you. But that video, Jerry, did you see the video of him leaving the hospital?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's only Scott Pollard. Only Scott Pollard. You know, he's definitely a one of one. No question.
You guys have to do the play-by-play, but I did see the shoes he's been wearing in rehab. Are you kidding me?
I know.
Scott, love it.
Well, they gave him those shoes. I guess
yeah.
I mean, I'm surprised they had shoes that could fit him. But anyway, that's good news. All right, Jerry, you weren't with us on the post game because you do halftime with us, and I've talked about this, and I'm going to continue to talk about this. The Kings do not have a legitimate backup point guard when Fox is not playing. Now, do I expect them to be able to find a De'Aaron Fox type backup point guard? No, but they really don't have anybody, in my opinion, that can run the team. And again, I just thought last night, without Fox, the offense is just stagnant.
Yeah, well, there's no question they miss him tremendously. And I mean, for his scoring as much as playmaking, I mean, probably Domas is really their leading playmaker, but I mean, Fox is certainly the second, and he takes, maybe more importantly, he takes away the best defender, at the guard position, is really going to focus on him. And so, that's a little bit of a factor. And you're right. You just, this team can't replace him. I mean, that was the thing I think, people were talking about at the break, that could they get a Delon Wright, someone like that. Obviously the Heat got him, and they're guys you can't replace a Fox, but you've got to get some productivity at the backup point guard position, and they really haven't got that.
Yeah, Jerry, if you want to look at the front office and the moves that they've made in the last couple of years, really nothing's been done to bolster that or get a point guard that plays a similar style like De'Aaron Fox. And I think even at a bigger issue, you look at the way the roster is made up, you wonder if sometimes some of the guys don't play the same systems as well as the others.
Well, that's always been the case. I mean, and like I say, Fox is very unique in the sense that, he's a point guard who really is a scorer first that can make plays. He's a scorer who can make plays. So it's really tough to, fit someone in, so to speak, but it's also true if you got more of a true playmaker, you basically, with your second unit, you can play different, because obviously Domas has to go out of the games at times as well. So yeah, it's a weakness, as Grant pointed out. I mean, really, you can't slice it any other way. It's kind of like another good big wing, that the team clearly needs. I think a lot of us were and I don't know what deals were there or could have been done, but the Royce O'Neal going to Phoenix, I thought would have been a great fit here. A big, athletic, tough guy that can make shots.
Jerry, when you look at Denver, when they're healthy, they still might be the team to beat in the West. I still think the Clippers, when they're healthy, are right there. I'm not discounting Minnesota or Oklahoma City. I don't know if Oklahoma City has enough of that quote unquote playoff experience to make that big of a jump in 1 year. So that's why I'm not putting them on that same platform. But I want to get your take of those 4 teams. Who do you think might emerge as the number 1 seed in the West?
Well, I don't, I wouldn't say that Denver is the most talented, but I think they're the best.
Okay.
They've been there, they've done that when they're healthy. I mean,
when they're healthy,
they're a thinner team than they were last year. But Braun's coming on to where he's a little more. Watson, they're getting some minutes from him. Their starting 5 is terrific. I don't think any team has a starting 5 as good as Denver's. When they're all there, that's the good news. The bad news is Murray misses quite a few games. Porter misses quite a few games. So, you got to have all 5 of those guys.
Ryan, who do you think the top dog is in the West?
I'm with Jerry. I think it's Denver until further notice. I think Oklahoma City has the potential to be there. I think that's the team to watch in the playoffs. I'm still not a believer in Minnesota. For whatever reason, I'm not there yet, and I know that I'm on an island on that one.
Yeah, I'm there. I think they are a team that I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the NBA Finals this year. I think they're good. I think they're deep. By the way, Anthony Edwards is questionable tomorrow for Minnesota with ankle soreness. Knowing his personality and knowing and speaking to Jim Peterson, the former King and the longtime TV analyst from Minnesota, I'm going to wager to say he'll play. But I'm a little different than you. You might be on an island. I think Minnesota could represent the West. Jerry, are you high on Minnesota?
I think they're really good. They've got it all together, and an excellent coach as well. He didn't get a lot of credit. I think their bench is solid. They're good enough. I wouldn't, like I say, I would not take them over Denver just because. I'm kind of the old Rudy Tomjanovich statement, never bet against the heart of a champion. Sure. And so, but, I mean, Denver is not one of the all-time great teams either in history of the league. No. But, I think the Clippers could win. And I think that Minnesota, I think those are the 3 that I think could win the West. I don't really think any other team could actually win the West.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a 2-team race. I think it's Clippers and the Nuggets.
Okay, well, again, because of experience, I'm not putting Oklahoma City in that group, but I think, again, they're capable. All right, let's get back to the Kings. So a road game tomorrow. They're currently 8th, and they'll be looking at the scoreboard tonight. Here's the problem the biggest problem I have with the Sacramento Kings with 24 games left. I don't know which team's going to show up. That's the biggest problem I have with the team as we hit March. I don't know if it's going to be the A version or the C version because I haven't seen any. Shouldn't say any. I haven't seen enough consistency this year, Jerry. I really don't know what to expect tomorrow. I believe if Fox does playing an upper echelon team, a team that they've already beat once in their own gym. It was their first home loss of the year. I mean, I think the Kings are going to play very well tomorrow, but I really don't know.
No, I don't think you can. I would agree. I mean, that's been one of the kind of laments of Kings fans all year, and there's no question when Fox is at his best and Domas is at his best and you get a good bench performance, usually you can count on Monk and Lyles, but sometimes you don't get the bench performance, and Harrison kind of goes away. But I think that is a real concern because they have to. This is a team that really is pretty thin, I think, and they really have to have Domas and Fox playing as well as they can, and if they don't, they're just not. Quite honestly, I don't think they're good enough, and that's tough because they're a good team, but to beat the upper echelon in the West right now. It's hard to see that.
Ryan, Fox is still questionable for the game tomorrow, so we don't know whether he's going to play or not. I'm going to give the Kings very little chance to win if Fox is not on the floor, even if Anthony Edwards doesn't play for Minnesota, which would be a big loss for them. But I have no confidence at all in this Kings team if Fox is not on the floor. None.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. And Grant, let's not take for granted if he is on the floor, he's probably not going to be 100%. So that's going to affect the pace. And the Kings have actually played really well with the pace against Minnesota this year.
Yep.
So look for that. And I think also the three-pointers, the Kings up until last night had held Denver to just a tad below or above 31% for the season on threes. This year, the Kings are holding Minnesota to 33.3%. So maybe throw a little zone defense in.
Well, I think they'll need to. I think that's a great point, Ryan. I mean, I think the matchups will be very difficult. Man, I do hope we see a lot more zone, especially if Edwards doesn't play.
Exactly.
Be very, very comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
Who's the playmaker?
He's questionable with ankle soreness. I got to believe he's going to play. I believe he's going to play, and I think if Fox can play, he will play. So we'll see. Right now Minnesota's the top dog in the West. The Kings and the Timberwolves seem to match up pretty well in terms of their competitiveness and the games that they have played. So we'll see. But remember, the Kings went to Minnesota earlier in the year and handed them their first home loss of the year. And that's when Minnesota was rolling. So the Kings have to have some confidence, Rhino, that they can go in there and win. Ryan and Jerry, we've been talking a lot about the ever-changing rotation in the standings. Like one win, you can vault 2 or 3 places, one loss, the same. Rhino's got the strength of schedule that we want to put up on the screen and show you the toughest remaining schedule. Now, obviously, this is altered when you have a player out of the lineup, but those are the toughest remaining schedules thanks to Tankathon with Phoenix, Utah, Milwaukee, San Antonio, and you see Sacramento is down there at 9th. Ryan, what do you take out of that graphic, buddy?
I take that the Sacramento Kings need to take advantage of their schedule. I mean, 9th, I think they're actually a little bit lucky, considering how many home games they have. So, I think that they've just got to take advantage. That's all I see, Jerry.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I wonder, they basically have the win percentage thing there, and how much really do they count home and away equally? They're just talking about games against opponents, and I've always said that that's a little bit skewed, especially because most teams are pretty equal now, but the Kings have got a real advantage in home games to road games. So, but as Grant pointed out a week ago, which is true, the team has yet to prove they're really a sure thing at home.
They're only 16-10. They're only 16-10 at home. I mean, just to give you an idea.
And I think that's, for me, regardless of so-called strength of schedule, if the Kings could somehow win 12, 13 of their home games, then they can move up a notch. But it comes down to that. Win your home games.
Jerry, you taught me this years ago, and once we get past 40 games, I use it as my number one barometer in determining whether a team's good or not. And it's the point differential. And I hate to keep on harping on this, but you hit ever since you taught me that, it just proves to be accurate almost all the time. Of the top 10 teams currently, okay, in the Western Conference, the Kings, other than the Lakers, who are 9th, have the worst point differential of all of the 10 teams at 0.3. Just to give you an idea, Minnesota, these are all positive. 7-3, Oklahoma City 8.3, Denver 4.2, the Clippers 4.6, the Suns 3.0, the Pelicans 4.1, Dallas 1.3, the Kings 0.3, then the Lakers 9th minus 0.4, and in 10th place the Warriors plus 1.8. That's why I have very little confidence in this team being able to finish in the top 6. I don't care whether they're playing at home, on the road, or on the moon. I just don't see it.
Well, we've talked before. I mean, there's only two things that are almost for sure is win-loss record, number one, but winning margin. And eventually, due to the home-away differences kind of thing, the margin will show you the same thing. I mean, and to some minor degrees, but the top 3 teams in the East and top 3 teams in the West will probably have the highest win-loss margin, and so History proves it. So it is a concern. It is definitely a concern as a Kings fan that they just haven't shown the power that they did last year. I think they had over a 3-point win margin last year.
Well, they were in a lot more. They were in a lot more close games last year, Jerry.
Correct.
You know, Fox, Mr. Clutch, first time.
Absolutely. So Ryan and Jerry, let's talk about that, because I think Jerry brings up a great point. And Ryan, you were talking about they haven't really been in a lot of close games this year. Why is that? I mean, why do you think that the point disparity at 0.3 is so different than a year ago? Why haven't the Kings been more competitive this year? Is it Fox, Ryan, or is there another reason to this?
I think, and this is strictly my opinion, and I said it last night and I want to get Jerry's thoughts too, but I said it last night on the post-game show. I don't think De'Aaron Fox gets the most out of Domantas Sabonis. If you look at Jamal Murray and you look at the other point guards in the league that are considered in the same tier as De'Aaron or maybe above, if they have a forward or a good big man, they make each other better. They elevate each other. And for whatever reason, I don't see that spark there. And you've also seen a lot less set plays by the Kings. And you notice a difference when Malik Monk comes on the floor. That pick and roll is there all day with Sabonis.
Yeah, I think you make a great point, by the way. I mean, you know, Fox, to his credit, he's so good in the short mid-range jump shots that when he's looking to get to those spots, and a lot of times, you know, to where Monk would be looking for a little drop pass or something as Domas's man maybe is in, you know, nowhere, and Domas gets some easy put ups, and so does Lynn or McGee when they were in there. Yeah, I think that's something that, you know, that definitely Fox could do better, because he's going to draw attention, and that's you know, that's kind of like a Anthony Edwards or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They get in there and they find the big guys for little drop-off passes, and I think he could definitely do that better. The other thing I'd say, you know, to me, the team is way too interested in creating 3-point shots, and what it's done, you know, the nights they can win that way certainly, but they don't get to the line near as much, and so there's a free throw drop off, and so as you guys just talked about close games, well, if you're not getting to the line, you're giving away some points, and
Great point.
That I think that's a real difference in this team. They're not really getting to the line as much.
All right, some scores that we'll be keeping an eye on tonight. The Knicks are going to be hosting the Warriors. The Warriors are really playing well. The Spurs and the Thunder from San Antonio. The Suns are back in action tonight. They're home against the Rockets. The Nuggets on a back-to-back at home against the Heat. And then the Lakers take on the Wizards. So, you know, we keep on talking about the teams that are ahead of Sacramento and Dallas. But now all of a sudden, and again, I'm only going to say if the Kings were to lose tomorrow and the Warriors win tonight, the Warriors are only one game back in the loss column of Sacramento. If the Lakers beat Washington tonight and the Kings lose tomorrow, the Kings are only 2 games up in the loss column over the Lakers. Sacramento is currently 8th, but they're really 6th, if you want to look at it that way, in this sense. They're even on the loss column. Only look at the loss column, folks, because teams have played an uneven number of games. Phoenix has 24 losses. They're in 5th. Then New Orleans, Dallas, and Sacramento, 6th, 7th, and 8th, respectively, have 25 defeats. That's why when you have these bad losses against Miami, against Detroit, against Charlotte, and again, the teams I just mentioned have had bad losses too. But I think the bad losses now are magnified more. We reflect more now that we're past All-Star break. I know each game is a game, but to me, Ryan, I look at this schedule, the bad losses just have to stop. And by bad losses, I'm talking about you cannot lose right now to the teams that you are clearly better than. Okay, like you can't be losing to, let's say, a Spurs team. You can't be losing to a team such as a Memphis. You can't be losing to a Portland team again, right? That can't happen if you're going to be a top 6 seed when it's all said and done.
You're spot on, Grant. Look at the Kings last year. They had their struggles in games against teams they were better than, but not like this year. I mean, the really good to great teams, those are no-brainers. And so when they hit these stretches, guess what? they have some fat in the reserve. Kings have no fat. You laid it out perfect. Their margin of error is like this.
Yeah.
The other part of that too, and that's a great point, is in my mind is that if you're at home, you should beat the better teams too. You know,
You should, right.
Now
Yeah.
on the road, you got no right to expect that. You know, I mean, getting beat by Denver didn't surprise me when I knew they were healthy. You know, the fact the way the game started was a surprise. But anyway, yeah, I really believe it. And going back to what you guys talk about, at the end of the year, I mean, it truly is. It's like if you're not mentally ready for every home game to play your very best, you know, something's wrong. And I mean, and you got a right, I think, as a fan, to expect consistency, certainly at home. I think,
And I look at this. I look at the schedule, and I try to look at it without being able to forecast injuries. But the stretch that to me is the do or die the rest of the season begins after you get back from Orlando, and you only have one day off to get ready for Philadelphia. So you're on the East Coast, and we know what happens when you're gone on the East Coast and you come home and you only have one day off. You normally lose. So they got Philadelphia. Then you got 2 games against Dallas, and they're playing much better. Then you have Utah. Then you have the Clippers at home. And then look at this road trip, which is very unusual for April. You normally don't have a trip like this in April. You're at the Knicks, who in all likelihood will be healthy then. You're at Boston. I think they're the best team in the entire league. You're at Brooklyn, not very good. And then, but that's the second night of a back-to-back. Or no, I take that back. That's then the 2 nights later, you're at Oklahoma City. Okay, then you come home and play New Orleans and Phoenix, and you end the season with Portland. But how about that stretch, guys? Orlando on the road is going to be a tough game. Philly at home, Dallas, Utah, the Clippers. Then at the Knicks, the very next night at the Celtics, at Brooklyn, at Oklahoma City, New Orleans, Phoenix, and Portland at home. That is, you got to be afloat when you get to there. You got to be afloat because that is a brutal stretch, guys.
Yeah, and you've got to beat teams like Dallas, even though, like
Yes.
I say, Dallas is as you pointed out. I mean, they're playing very well. The moves they made at the break has made them tougher. So you've got to beat them, and then on that, you know, with Boston and the Knicks, you got to get the Nets. You know,
That's
you
right.
have to win that game. I mean, there's just some, you know, it's no, I mean, certainly the Knicks, if they're healthy now, and I think the 76ers, you got to win that game. Embiid is probably not going to play. And,
That's right.
And so there's no reason not to beat the 76ers.
That's a very good point right there. I want to tell everyone about New Works Plumbing for your plumbing needs and repairs. Make sure you get to New Works Plumbing because they've got a fix for you. There's the number on your screen, or sackserviceplumbing.com. New Works Plumbing, open 24/7, meaning they're available if you have an emergency in the middle of the night. Again, sackserviceplumbing.com, or you can call the number on your screen. Something else I want to point out, if you are interested in becoming a sponsor here for the Stretch Drive, which really is beginning right now for the months of March and April, all you need to do is hit me up. You can send me an email, and we would love to talk to you about sponsorship opportunities. gnapier@gmail.com. That's gnapier@gmail.com. Hit me up, and we'll be happy to talk to you about sponsorship opportunities. So I know it's a cliche, but it's not a cliche this year. Every single game. I mean, one win can be the difference this year between 5th and 7th. And the difference between 5th and 7th is humongous. It's gigantic, okay? So you better believe that we are going to be looking at these games with a fine-tooth comb because every single game is that important.
Well, you know, the other thing too is scary to me is because if you're not in the 6, I mean, really, say you have the one game play-in and you're playing the Lakers or the Warriors.
Good luck.
Yeah, I mean, they're you know, certainly if they stay healthy and the way they're playing now, both teams they're bringing kind of their A games here near the end of the season.
Good luck.
Grant, Jerry, are we setting our expectations, or are the Kings setting their expectations or their fans too high by even talking about the 6 seed? Because looking at that end stretch and just getting to that stretch, there's not a lot of gimmies here in this Kings schedule. And there's not a lot of places where they could gain momentum. Granted, they haven't been a huge momentum team this year.
Well, I'm going to answer it this way. There are 2 groups of people that I think always have unrealistic expectations. and that would be the fans. And that's not slighting the fans. That's just the way it is. And I think that would be true in almost every market, okay? And then the second one are owners. Owners very often have complete unrealistic expectations. And part of the reason for that, in my experience, is that the owners are among the least knowledgeable basketball people in the entire building and the least knowledgeable sports people in the entire building. They have no understanding of sports. They really don't. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. And so I think that, a lot of owners feel that they can go into a sports franchise and run their business the way they ran their business that made them billions of dollars. Doesn't work like that. So I'll start with fans and ownership as always having unrealistic expectations, Jerry. And Jerry, I know you've lived through it on both sides of the fence.
Oh yeah, and I think that's very predictable. I mean, it'd be that's why guys want to buy teams at humongous amounts of money. They've been rich for a long time and nobody knew who they were. And then they buy a team and everybody knows who they are,
Yep.
Mark Cuban's maybe the best example of that.
Point.
But I mean, so you have that, and then they have reason to believe that, well, geez, I really did this really great to get in a position. So I always said the best owners within a reasonable time frame figure out that they really kind of don't know what they don't know.
That's very true. But Jerry, I don't think you'll ever see Mickey Harrison calling Pat Riley into his office and telling him what to do. You know what I mean?
No, and I think that's a great point on a couple of fronts. I think Mickey Harrison was involved a lot, and he really kind of knew I better find somebody that really knows what they're doing, and I'll step back and stay all the way. And that's what they've done, and that's the culture they've created. So. Yeah, it's a really, as fans, we're always going to probably overrate our team a little bit, just like blaming officials a little more. Every team, that every time you lose a game, the fans feel like the refs screwed them. And if you win, you never hear say, boy, we screwed the other team. Right. You can't really have it both ways.
Nope. Well, I guess maybe you can if you had a bet on the game. I mean, they do these things these days, Jerry, the kids.
Yeah, that's a good point there. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, again, the Kings and the Timberwolves tomorrow. I was thinking about this, Jerry. I think we talked about this a week ago or 2 weeks ago. You and I, we did a lot of seasons together, either on TV or traveling together when you were a coach or in management. I don't ever recall this type of a stretch of road games ever. I mean, this is the craziest schedule that I've seen. I mean, the Kings almost seem like since the first of the year have been on the road the whole freaking calendar year of 2024. It's unbelievable to me.
Well, it hadn't benefited them, that's for sure. But there is, as we were talking about before, I mean, they should have a chance since they're playing more home games to make up for it. But they, you got to win them, or it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I was doing a quick Google search to see if March Madness was going to be a G1C this year.
No,
which it's not. So, but yeah, it's a bizarre thing with the schedule that the Kings have faced. But like you said, Grant, it's not anything different. But I remember, at least for me, and you guys know better, certain times a year you knew the Kings were going to be certain places. I remember the Knicks game being way earlier in the winter, not this late.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and a lot of fans don't really understand this, but the schedule also is greatly affected by other dates booked in the arena, such as concerts, ice shows. We can go on and on. I mean, that's just the way it is. For whatever reason, it seems like the Kings every single year play Boston around the holidays. Not every year, but most years. There are many other examples of that. So, and I say this, Jerry's birthday and my wife's birthday on January 29th, we were always on the road somewhere wishing our spouses a happy birthday. I really don't recall being at home very often on the 29th. Yeah. It seemed like the Kings are on the road every single year in the end of January.
Yeah. But the thing you pointed out is the real key there is, as a Golden One or Madison Square Garden, whatever it is, they give the league a list of open dates,
Yes.
And some sites have a lot more availability than do others. And so that really does impact, your schedule to some degree.
Yeah.
Hey, Ryan, on January 29th, I wasn't wishing Jerry's spouse a happy birthday. I was wishing mine. I was wishing Jerry a happy birthday. And of course, last just a couple of weeks ago, we wished Jerry a very happy 80th. But again, the Kings, I always talk about this. Jerry's anniversary, December 23rd, and his birthday, the 29th. And I'm not kidding you. I don't know if we ever had off on those dates. I really don't. I don't. I really think we had a game
rare.
every single
I know
year.
that. It's pretty rare.
Yeah.
So it probably helped my marriage, though. So
there's a reason basketball players and people around the game are creature habits for the most part. It's because of that. You guys know you're going to be away. You know the time of the year.
But you do. You're right. I mean, you kind of do get that in your mind. Okay, it's like an athlete, and I always say that's why sometimes road trips are good for players, because they can really focus on the game and with the coaches, and all that. They really focus on the games. When you're at home, sometimes things get skewed a little bit.
No doubt.
Well, it's all part of the gig, that is for sure. So again, Fox questionable tomorrow. Anthony Edwards questionable for tomorrow. Minnesota is number 1 in the West. So we'll see. There's going to be another good. Again, I think if Edwards and I'm really hoping that both play. I want this to be a measuring stick type of a game again, and it won't be a measuring stick if Edwards doesn't play or Fox doesn't play. So I'm really hoping, guys, we have a healthy. I'd love to see both teams at full strength.
Yeah, I mean that's what you want. You want to, beat the best at their best with their best, and that gives you a good idea. And the Kings, I do think the pace is such a key. The faster the pace, I think, will really help the Kings, because you end up saying if you have to play a lot of half court against them, it's going to be tough. I mean, they're big and long, and everything. So, the more you can force the game, whether you're pressing or just really making sure you run after made baskets or every opportunity, that'll be the best chance.
Yeah, one more thing to that, Jerry. The Kings got out to a really hot start the first game in Minnesota where they beat them. And early in the season, Minnesota had some issues giving up big leads. And Minnesota wasn't able to catch back up to the Kings in that game. So they can have one of those really big first quarters, first halves. That could set it up nicely.
Well, I do think they're like the Kings. They really depend on Edwards to kind of fill in the blanks, because he can go get a shot, about any time. He's a creator and lively guy. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns, great shooter, but he can't create one-on-one that well. And Mike Conley's a great leader, but that's what he is, a great leader who can make open shots. So Edwards is kind of the gap, I think. Gobert does what Gobert's always done, and he and Towns are really getting comfortable together. But all I know is you don't want to play against Towns and Gobert in the half court.
Yeah, and Jerry, I don't think Mike Conley gets. Yeah. I don't think Mike Conley gets enough
at the grocery.
Yeah, right. Yeah, go run some errands for me. I don't think Mike Conley gets enough credit on that Minnesota team. I think he's a stabilizing force for them. I really do.
Well, they were a team in trouble until they made the trade for him last year.
Yes.
And I mean, absolutely. He's a true, we always talk about leadership. He's a legitimate, true leader. And if actually with the talent Utah's got, if they had Conley still, they'd be in the hunt. But they don't have anybody that right now.
That's right. By the way, go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, I was going to say it's a perfect example of what you talked about, or we started the show with backup point guards for the Kings. They had D'Angelo Russell before Conley, and they were not playing great all the time. They bring Conley in. He's more of a stabilizer, as Jerry said.
Yeah, very true. Minnesota, by the way, has now won 8 of their last 10 games. And at home, they are 22-6. Of course, one of those losses is to Sacramento. So they're very good at home. They're very good overall. They're 42-17 this year. They are a half game ahead of Oklahoma City, but even in the loss column. Then you have Denver with 19 losses and the Clippers with 20. But again, 3 straight wins for Minnesota, 8 of their last 10. And this game, again, assuming that Fox and Edwards play, would be a dandy. This should be a heck of a game, that's for sure.
Yeah, it'd be fun, and I mean, it'd be the ultimate win. If the Kings could pull a win on the road against Minnesota, then it change all of our narratives. You know how that goes.
Yeah,
Somebody wants us to get into the backstory of Michael Malone getting fired by Vivek. It was really Pete D'Alessandro, the general manager, who stabbed Michael Malone in the back, and then Vivek went along with it. But I put that more on Pete D'Alessandro than I do the owner. But it's old news. Everyone's moved on, and it is what it is. I've said this, and I'm going to continue to say it until I take my last breath. The Kings fired the wrong guy, and they traded the wrong guy. All right, they should have kept Isaiah Thomas. They should have traded DeMarcus and kept Michael Malone, and I believe that the franchise would have been much better off. But you know what? You can't go back in history and change things. That's for sure.
No, but I'd agree with that 100%. And I do think, with Coach Malone, I mean, he's an ultimate competitor. And I mean, I think there's always a little bit of that Sacramento fired me when I didn't deserve to be fired. And right. And I knew, kind of going in with that team healthy, if they could beat the crap out of the Kings, they
were going to. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you see Jamal Murray late in the game? He was still on the court with 6 minutes to go. Mike Malone gets asked one question about just the game in general, and he highlights Jamal Murray's play. So it was beautiful.
Yeah. Well, we go back to we can always look back what should have done, what we should have seen, but it really doesn't do any good to talk about what happened to Michael Malone. I speak for Jerry because we both know Michael well. I could not be happier for the man. He's a good person. He does things the right way. And I always like to applaud not only people that do things the right way, but I'm a big believer in people paying their dues. He obviously grew up with a basketball pedigree with his late dad, Brendan. And so he was always around the game, but he wasn't handed anything on a silver platter. He worked his way up, and he's earned everything that he has received. And I'm a big fan of those type of work ethics, Jerry.
Oh, I am too. Yeah, he's a basketball lifer. There's no doubt about it. And by the way, I was going to mention too, I don't know if anybody's noticed it, but Dave Yeager is back on the bench with Doc in Milwaukee, and so of course he was out of the league a little bit because of Doc's situation. So I was glad to see Doc pick him up. And as you know, Dave's a darn good coach as well.
Yes, he is.
And good guy, really good guy to be around.
No question about that. Some final thoughts, gentlemen. Again, off day, the Kings, the standings will change in some fashion due to the fact that the Suns are playing, the Warriors are playing, the Lakers are playing. So those are some of the teams to keep an eye on, particularly the Phoenix Suns. You definitely want them to lose if you are a Kings fan. And so we'll keep an eye on those scores, and then we'll see who's on the court tomorrow. Don't forget, we will have the pregame show. Ryan and Sacktown will have that tomorrow. Jerry joins us at the half, and then we will be on to break it all down on the postgame show. That is all coming up tomorrow as we turn the calendar to March, an extra day here of February. Jerry, that's good for you. It extends your life.
Does,
we add more days to the month. It's good for you.
Every day counts. I mean, I'm just so thrilled. But all I know is that like we've talked about, the end of the season here, there's only 20 some games. Coaches, players, focus. It's every game. The end's in sight. Play it that way.
Yep.
Amen.
Ryan?
Amen, Jerry. I'm going to end it with that for this season. And all I'm going to say is back to the old Kings coaches really quick. They could have fielded almost a second starting five with coaches on the payroll, right?
I was going to say, that was my only regret in coaching was I always wanted to get one of those 5-year big several $1 million contracts and then get fired right away. But I'd have had the most magnanimous press conference in the history of mankind.
Listen, we've seen coaches take the jobs in Sacramento to get a contract and want to be fired the next day. Okay.
Yes, we have.
We know the situation, but what were your thoughts on Eric Musselman and his time here?
I think it's a case where, following Rick Adelman, that's an impossible situation. Number one, the team was heading the wrong way. I think even at the time, I thought with Eric, he was kind of a raw win one for the Gipper kind of guy, which doesn't really fly well in the pros.
No.
But it's great for
Amen.
And he's been a tremendous college coach, and I think
That's where he belongs.
It's where he belongs. I mean, sometimes there's just guys, it's kind of like assistant coaches. Some guys are great assistants, but not necessarily good head coaches. You just don't know until you get in those spots. But I think Eric was an excellent basketball man. But
Yes.
follow Rick Adelman, number one, that's impossible. And then probably, trying to win one for the Gipper every night. Pretty soon everybody says, screw the Gipper.
Yeah.
Full transparency. I'm friends with Eric. I stay in touch with him. We text every now and then. I've had him on my podcast. I love the man. He's a great human being. I knew that things were in trouble when he started having the equipment manager bring signs on the road to plaster on the locker room. Similarly to what you would see if you walk into the Notre Dame's locker room, Michigan's locker room. That doesn't fly in the NBA.
No.
And it's Eric Musselman's personality, and that's who Muss is, but it didn't resonate with the players, and it actually became almost a source of jokes towards Muss. That does not work in the big leagues. It works fine in college, on an 18 and 19-year-old. Doesn't work well with your 25-year-old who have been in the league for several years. When you walk into the locker room, there are all these signs on the wall of sports slogans and everything. Doesn't fly.
Well, with all due respect, they just spent 1, 2, 3, 4 years in that environment. They're ready for the NBA.
Yeah, that's very true. And I'll tell you, I've always thought that Muss's basketball knowledge was outstanding. You got to remember, he also grew up in a basketball family with his late dad, Bill Musselman. So Muss has been around the game ever since he was old enough to, remember and dribble a basketball. Muss has been in the game. Muss is, and I'll tell you this, and Jerry, you and I talk about this all the time. If I have a 17-year-old, 18-year-old who has the ability to go and play basketball, and Eric Musselman comes to my house and sits in my living room, after getting done with that, whatever, several hours, whether it's a meal, whatever, I got to believe my son's playing for Muss. He's got that ability to win a room. When he walks into a room, he's like Gary St. Jean that way. They win over the room.
Yeah, he does. He has a great personality, and I always say, and he's such a fiery competitor. People always talk about, Muss is sometimes. I said, wait a minute. If you knew his dad, you'd say he's docile. I knew his dad. True. I knew his dad well, and that was a strange buckaroo right there. I'm telling you.
Oh boy. Yeah, he was a different cat. There is no question. But back to Muss, he's done a great job in college at Reno and now at Arkansas. He's where he belongs in college. That's where his forte is.
You guys nailed it when you said he belongs around 18 and 19-year-olds because it's great for him too.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. No question. Jerry, halftime tomorrow, we'll look forward to it.
Let's hope we do. And, like you say, it's you're playing the best team in the West, so no reason not to go give it your best, and we'll see where we are.
All right, awesome. And Ryan, you got a little frog in your throat. You'll be fine by tomorrow. I'm not worried about you, man.
Oh, I'll be good to go. It'll be out by then, Grant.
Yeah, and we'll be keeping our eye on the NBA scoreboard, which, again, is going to affect the standings. We know that when you have the people that are trying. By the way, the Warriors, thanks to Baki, have opened up a 12-0 lead on the Knicks. But you got to remember, Memphis opened a 12-0 lead on Minnesota last night, and they lost. It's now 14-0. But Memphis isn't the Warriors. 14-0. You think the boos have already started at MSG? I can almost guarantee you the boos have started at MSG. And
absolutely.
And there's no other arena that Steph Curry loves playing more than Madison Square Garden. He loves to go in there and put on a show.
That's pretty darn cool. That seems to be the consensus around those guys, Grant. But looking forward to tomorrow night. I'm going to leave Kings fans with a little bit of optimism. Minnesota, heading into this one, they had a back-to-back. So they had a day off. So they really had about 4 games in about 5-6 days. So maybe they're a little tired. Looking for positive here, Grant. Silver lining.
Take anything you can get. Take anything you can get.
Don't call us negative. we're positive here on if you don't like that.
There you have it. Have a good one, buddy. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right, buddy.
All right. And for everyone else, appreciate you joining. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so. Give us a thumbs up and enjoy the rest of your day. So long, everybody. We'll talk to you.